Hello and welcome to the World of Football show here on Sports Tonight Live. I'm Mina Rzouki and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host Gabriele Marcotti. Hello Gab, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, perfect. Obviously today we're going to cover all of the leagues as usual, not all of them as much as possible in the hour, but we're going to start off with Germany and the Bundesliga. Now, Gary Neville said that it's kind of a boring league. Now, I want to sort of agree with him, sorry, because I just, as much as it's very exciting to watch, I don't find it to be the best league, or certainly not one that's in the top three.
But that's not the issue. That's not what Gary said.
Well,
he didn't say it was the best.
No, he just said it was a boring league. That was it. Yeah.
Boring. Do you find it boring?
Other than goals scored, yeah, I find it boring because you're not really that interested in watching matches that are between the smaller teams like it is when you're watching sort of even like Zaragoza in La Liga is interesting to watch when you compare it to the small teams in Germany. But
when you say small
there's
teams
goals
in Germany,
scored all the time. But,
when you say small teams in Germany, who are you thinking of?
Like,
what do you call a small team?
Well, to be honest, anything that's not really in the top 5 or 6. I would say anything under
With
that,
the top 5 or
Hanover,
6
Hoffenheim,
teams.
they're not interesting to watch. Do you see what I mean? In the same way that, for example, if you look at Serie A, like it's Palermo, or we're talking about Udinese, all of those.
Would that be Europa League quarter-finalist Hanover you're talking about?
All right, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to win this. But having said that, in this week we had an excellent match in between Dortmund and Stuttgart, where there was 8 goals. Of course, in the Bundesliga there are always goals, but this is a fantastic game. 3 goals scored in 8 minutes for Stuttgart.
That's right, and with Bayern Munich winning against Nuremberg, just 3 points.
So what does that mean? James, hello James, how are you from Bundesliga.com?
I am doing very well, and I have to say it's blasphemy that you're calling the Bundesliga boring, Mina.
I'm sorry. It's only because I'm biased and bitter when it comes to Serie A not being in the top 3 anymore. I certainly think that there are always goals galore. But that was a really great advertisement for the league, that game. 4-4, Bayern Munich, of course, winning. Do you think, like Gab said, that this has opened up the title race in Germany?
Oh, without a doubt, it has opened up the title race. Really, I mean, Dortmund, they were the makers of their own downfall against Stuttgart, a couple of very poor defensive mistakes. I mean, 70 minutes gone, they're 2-0 up. Everyone's thinking, oh, it's another typical Dortmund win. They're going to dominate till the end. And then all of a sudden, Stuttgart out of nowhere made a game of it and put Dortmund on the back foot. They went 3-2 up. Dortmund then came back and made it 4-3. And then a really, really bad mistake right at the death meant that they basically put the equaliser on a plate for Christian Gentner. Mats Hummels was the one that was probably the one to blame for that one. But 6 goals and 2 lead changes in the last 19 minutes tells you everything you need to know about that match. It was a fantastic one to watch, breathtaking from start to finish, really. And as you say, Gab, with Bayern winning against Nuremberg, 3 points now the difference. Obviously, April 11th is now being billed as the title decider, Dortmund against Bayern. It is going to be a big match, but I almost feel like the result this weekend for Dortmund could be more pivotal in the title race in the fact that it's changing the momentum a little bit. Bayern are winning and winning and winning. Dortmund are stuttering a little bit. Now, we can't read into it too much because Stuttgart, they are an informed team and really shouldn't be underestimated in the Bundesliga. But, I mean, just to talk about the boring aspect, when you consider the fact that right now in the Bundesliga, 1st and 2nd are currently battling it out for the title, 3rd and 4th are battling it out for the automatic Champions League qualifications. 5th through 9th are separated by a point and are battling for Europa League. And then everyone else is battling relegation, essentially, apart from Kaiserslautern, who are dead and buried.
Okay, well, by your definition, so you're saying basically because there's so much competition and 1 point separating everyone, it makes for an exciting league. So then what does that say about the Dutch league? They have 1 point separating everything. Does that make them the most exciting league, or is that really what you can say? How you
certainly
can
makes
define?
them an exciting league, right?
It does.
But really, is that the league that you would choose to watch? If anything, I'm just playing a devil's advocate here. I'm just saying to you, is that really the way that you would define an exciting league, just by lots of competition?
No, I mean, of course, obviously competition is a great thing. Goals, as you mentioned as well, Mina, are a great thing. Now, I mean, I think the boring comment comes ultimately from several years of watching Bayern dominate this league. And it almost seems like the power struggle is maybe shifting a little bit in the fact that Bayern, the pressure gets to them every now and again. Granted, they're in 2nd place right now and starting to win again. But we saw that dip in form just after the winter break. Dortmund are obviously on a 22-match unbeaten run and looking in formidable form. And really, for me, the competition definitely makes it interesting. I think the drama off the field makes it exciting as well. I mean, even this weekend we had Robben getting fired from Leverkusen and things like that. Lots of rumours about Solbakken at Köln as well. And I mean, you talked about the smaller teams not being that exciting to watch. One of the best matches outside of the 4-4 draw in Dortmund this weekend was Köln against Augsburg. And the only reason being that both teams fighting for their lives down the bottom of the table. It was basically like watching a Champions League knockout match. They both went for it. It was a 2-1 win for Augsburg, but that actually was one of the best matches this weekend.
James, getting back to that Dortmund Stuttgart game, what struck me was, all right, if I'm the manager of the champions of Germany, if I'm Jurgen Klopp, I'm furious that they've given away a 2-0 lead. But what struck me is when he got back at 4-3 up, he was celebrating. It just struck me as weird because I would have thought, you know what, that's bare minimum. I would have been so angry at my players that I would have said to them, you got yourself into this mess, then you get yourself out of it. There's nothing to celebrate, nothing to be happy about. Because it's entirely your fault. Now, am I being sort of too harsh here, or is this something about Klopp's mentality?
I think it's something to do with Klopp and his personality, because it was interesting listening to his post-match interviews. He was talking about how the fact that really based on their performances, both Stuttgart and Dortmund probably would have won about 80% of Bundesliga matches this season based on those performances that night. And I think the football fan in him loved the spectacle, and he was ultimately pleased that he came out with a point because it could have been worse when they went 3-2 down. And at the same time, he recognised the fact that Stuttgart had really just thrown everything at his team. They had made them uncomfortable, and I think there was a bit of respect there from Klopp. So I think it certainly has something to do with his personality. Now, it's interesting you mentioned his celebrations. Bayern, when they won 1-0 at Nuremberg, which wasn't the most emphatic victory, it wasn't their best performance of the season, they celebrated like they had just won the title. Yeah. And that struck me as strange because really a 1-0 win at Nuremberg, you know, Bavarian rivals, not the best result for them. They had to rely on a moment of magic from Arjan, Robben. And for me, it's an interesting mentality. It's a great question that you bring up because Klopp jumped about a mile in the air when they scored and made it 4-3. But at the same time, his reaction when Hummels made the mistake for the last-minute equaliser from Christian Gentner was also very telling because it was almost like he had a smile on his face, kind of laughing at the fact of how crazy the match had been. At the same time, he was obviously disappointed they had dropped 2 points. He knows that that's ultimately going to shift the momentum a little bit, and it's going to fill, it did fill Bayern with confidence the day after. And so really for me, Dortmund obviously still in pole position. As I say, April 11th is ultimately going to be the title decider. But this result on Friday could be the one that people look back to and say that's where the momentum changed.
I wanted to ask about Bayern because it struck me as bizarre. Okay, they have this big Champions League game coming up, but on the other hand, Marseille are pretty much dead and buried. And yet they put out the kind of lineup that made me think that they either thought Nuremberg was going to be a walk in the park or they were resting people and had given up on the league because you saw Diego Contento there at left back. You had Pranjic playing, Schweinsteiger, I guess maybe isn't 100% yet, but he came off the bench. Did that strike you as a bit unusual? Were you expecting that? Are they just so confident they thought they could just brush Nuremberg aside?
Yeah, that's what it looked like, certainly.
I think there was a slight amount of complacency in terms of the starting lineup, but at the same time, as you say, they are still focused on the Champions League. Jupp Heynckes has already come out and said he's going to try and put out the best lineup he can against Marseille. Diego Contento certainly struck me as strange because David Alaba's been playing fantastically well at left back, considering he's not a left back. But at the same time, Schweinsteiger, you're right, he isn't fully fit. And all of a sudden, what was it, about 60th minute, they started panicking. And all of a sudden, Schweinsteiger came off the bench, Ribery came off the bench. And it certainly changed the game because it was one of those typical backs-to-the-wall performances from Nuremberg. They defended deep, they tried to soak up the pressure, and they did really well. They won, I think, 60% of the challenges in the match, and really, for me, were incredibly impressive. And I almost felt like they deserved to take something out of the game just because they had really dug in against a team with the quality of Bayern Munich. But at the same time, when you bring on the likes of Ribery off the bench and Schweinsteiger, it's certainly going to change the game. But really, again, a bit like Dortmund, Nuremberg were the makers of their own downfall. It was one terrible pass from Dominic Marot that gave it straight to Cruz. He was able to then set up Ribery one-on-one. The keeper managed to save that attempt. And then Robben was there on the follow-up to slot it into the bottom corner with a nice finish. And I mean, Robben scored 9 goals in his last 7 games, which is an incredible thing considering that people were starting to write him off a little bit. There are rumours now going around, and the Bild is reporting that he's going to sign a contract extension until 2015, which is a great thing for Bayern Munich because I think they do want to keep hold of him despite the fact they're bringing in talent in the summer in the form of people like Shedran Shaqiri. And for me, it was a strange lineup, but at the same time, Bayern have the quality to overcome a team like Nuremberg on their day. And as I think I've said a couple of times before, if anyone's going to win every game to the end of the season to win a title, Bayern Munich are going to be the team that can do that. And I say that begrudgingly because I have a slight aversion to them. They're one of these teams that just win everything. It's a bit like if I moved to England right now, I wouldn't support Man United because they just keep winning. Same with when I moved here to Germany. Bayern have won and won and won, and that has created a slight aversion from my perspective. But at the same time, you cannot deny the quality they have and their ability to win matches, maybe even when they don't deserve to.
Okay, thank you so much for talking with us, James. I'm sure we'll get back to you. Quite quick talk of the managers at the moment. Solbakken,
we didn't get a chance, to mention Solbakken, of course, about to go, and Robben Dutt at Bayer Leverkusen. It's a shame because he did look like he was one of the up-and-comers. Did very well at Freiburg last season. Yeah.
Okay, but did you not think he kind of lost authority of the dressing room a little? He seemed to be erratic on the bench. Didn't you see sort of it coming with the way?
I mean, obviously, Leverkusen, after finishing second last year, were down the table, and they did add Schürrle, and they were expecting a lot this season. He had to deal with Ballack being a bit of a pain in the butt. He lost Vidal. I think he's got a number of mitigating circumstances. But I tell you what, he's going to be back.
Well, we'll see about that. But next up is Spain, and we'll have some more chat about what's going on over there. So we'll see you in a bit.
We're back, and I know you missed us after all that Bundesliga chat. Mina, I need to start with a bit of a philosophical question. As you know, Osasuna played Real Madrid. They hosted Real Madrid this weekend. We're going to get into that game. A tremendous goal from Benzema and a tremendous goal from Ronaldo as well. But one of the stories that sort of captured the attention of the Spanish press in a very critical way was these Osasuna fans in their stand. There were some kids, with a couple of adults wearing Real Madrid shirts, and they kind of berated them and told them that they're in Pamplona, they should support Osasuna, their local team. Now, I don't like bullies as much as the next guy, and you obviously don't want to see grown men shouting at little kids. That said, the principle. If you're in Pamplona, if you're from Pamplona, shouldn't you support your local side? Isn't this where sort of the problem comes up when you start supporting teams that you only see on television? I'm not talking about, if you live in one country and, you let's say you live in England and you're a big Athletic Bilbao fan, obviously that's fine.
Okay, but if you're actually from a city, especially one from like Pamplona.
Isn't it kind of like a betrayal to your local side?
No, I think you should have the right to support whoever you want, whether you are from
that
city or not.
You obviously have the right, but I mean, I still have the right to call you a bit of a, glory chasing,
Me?
No, not you.
Right.
I think one in general, because
Yeah,
you support your local teams.
Yes, of course. Well, look, if you go to Sicily and you'll see them all supporting Juventus, and that's not their local team.
Well, precisely.
But then that's because, a lot of them went up north and they felt like they found themselves in the north.
But a lot of them didn't go up north. The ones who went up north tended to stay there. I mean, I appreciate if you've had an experience, you've had a live. Yeah. It's just that when you go to support a team simply because you see them on television and you don't support your local side, it just...
Well, you see, this is the thing. I don't think so. I think you should always support your country. I don't think you should always support your local team. Because who is really ever from one city?
Well, I mean, your local team in the sense of where you grew up, where your roots are.
What about if your father supports another team and you're going to follow family tradition?
That's fine. No, I can give you a pass on that one to some degree. But I don't know, it just kind of...
Did you feel really bad for them?
I could see both sides of the argument. But anyway, enough said about that. Osasuna, of course, a very proud fact. This was a game that, many of us said, ooh, I wonder, this Real Madrid could have a wobble here. They lost there with Pellegrini, and, they gave Barcelona such a hard time. Instead, they just wiped the floor from minute one.
Well, to be honest, I didn't think that this was going to... Yeah, I know that how they are an informed team at the moment, and they are the team to beat, considering how well they've been doing recently. But I think that the way that they play their football is kind of all a bit too much aggression and tenacity, and we're going to go there and we're going to, sort of make sure we'll power through. And when you're up against Real Madrid, and if you allow them that much possession, then I think it was kind of... not said and done, but maybe I think Real Madrid sort of went in there as a little bit of an underdog, knowing that they could fall, and because of that, felt that they had the energy and they weren't arrogant. They were geared up for this game, and to be honest, with the way that they scored was just magnificent. The first, especially Benzema's goal, so they had the confidence to keep going. I never saw this as a very tricky game with Osasuna, just because of the way they play their football.
Even though the build-up, even though the fact that they had to wait 70 minutes to score against Apoel, and before that you had Mourinho throwing his toys out
Yeah,
of the
because
pram.
against Apoel, you're talking about 11 men behind the ball. They were defending with their lives, and they have been in second gear for so long. And I remember telling you at the time that I felt like this is what they needed. They were suffering a little with Santi Cazorla's free kick, and then after the second week after conceded another free kick. They were playing in second gear, and they needed these shocks to sort of, shock them back into real life. And you feel now you're kind of seeing what they are capable of. Yes, they waited 70 minutes, but then they scored sublime goals to make sure of the fact that, even if they didn't manage it, do you really think that when it was at the Bernabeu that they wouldn't have managed to win?
No. I thought it was a trap game. I really did. And credit to Mourinho, I think, for lifting them in what were tricky circumstances. They've now scored 100 goals. More than 100 goals this year in 30 matches. Nobody's scored that many after 30 games. So, more records yet to fall. But here to help us sort through this a bit is Mr. Tim Stannard, who you know as La Liga Loca. Tim, all good?
Hi, Tim.
Hola. Hola, Tronco.
Hello there. Good afternoon, good evening. How are you?
Very well. I asked this. Cristiano scored 2 goals. One of them he belts it from 100 yards away. The other one is a free kick. Now, he's taken, and you will know this because I'm sure the stat's been repeated endlessly, especially in the Catalan press, but before he scored his free kick, he had taken 39 free kicks this season without scoring. I have no idea. This sounds to me like it's not a particularly good strike rate. Might it be a good idea if somebody else takes the free kicks?
You really don't want to see him sulking when that happens. Occasionally Xabi Alonso gets a go. And I think once Mesut Ozil had a shot on target as well from a free kick. But when it's a free kick, Cristiano Ronaldo goes up, picks the ball, and normally ends up in the stands or in the wall. And to tell the truth, this free kick wasn't even a well-taken free kick. It went under and hit a deflection and went in, so it wasn't a clean free kick. But no, there's no way to get the ball off him. The last person who tried doing that for a set-piece was Sergio Ramos, did it with a penalty. And I don't think Ronaldo's forgiven him, and that was a couple of seasons ago now.
See, there you go. And yet here in England, when Mario Balotelli, after color
That's what I was about to mention.
Three times the moron smacks it all over the place. Balotelli wants the ball. They don't give it to him, and everybody says it's Mad Mario. Sorry, I digress.
Oh,
we were talking about this. I saw this as a bit of a statement game from Real Madrid because they struggled to score for so long against Apoel. Mina isn't surprised that they went there and put 5 past Osasuna.
How many goals did they concede in the first round to both Barcelona and Real Madrid? They conceded something like eight.
This is a really, really tough game. This was a game I genuinely thought Real Madrid had a very good chance of slipping up in.
Thank you.
Osasuna at home, Osasuna away from home are completely different teams. Barcelona lost there. They've only lost twice in Osasuna. The way they play is horrible. I quite enjoy it, but it's horrible to watch. It's long balls, set pieces, corners, and aerial barrage. And
are you English by any chance? Are you English by any chance?
I am. I like it, but they're frowned upon in Spain a little bit. So it was a really, really tough game, a tough proposition rather. And for me, this was their best performance in the league this season. Osasuna at home is very, very hard place to go. But to thrash them like they did 5-1 really was a statement of intent this season.
All right, let's go Twilight Zone now and talk about sort of weird things happening. We'll get to Barcelona and Bilbao later, but Zaragoza, 3 wins on the bounce.
Amazing.
I understand. Isn't the idea that like when you're basically broke and you just kind of accept your lot in life and lie down. What happened?
Manolo Jimenez.
Well, yeah, exactly. Manolo Jimenez, a new coach that's come in. Zaragoza always had players who do have talent in there. You've got Helder Postiga up front, who's more than capable of scoring the odd goal from time to time. However, they weren't really a team. There were a lot of players who joined last summer or joined over the winter window, contracts perhaps expiring at the end of the year, loan deals, people moving and moving out. So they weren't really committed to the cause. But somehow Manolo Jimenez, perhaps by terrifying them and shouting at them as what his normal tactic is, has managed to bring something out of them. They're scoring a lot of late goals in the 89th, 90th minute to get winners. And this is what's carrying them through. I don't think it's going to be enough. I think that the challenge is too much, and they're running out of time a little bit to get perhaps 5 wins from their final 8 games. But it's fun to watch them trying to get out of the bottom 3.
Why did you say that? You have said that what they have over the other teams is that they do stay concentrated for the full 90 minutes in the sense that they have been scoring. I believe, like you said, 5 of their 7 victories have come in the final minutes. Now, for a team that are, suffering with so much debt and everything that's going in them, and the fact that Manolo Jimenez went in and said shame on them when they were losing, do you not feel like he has the character to sort of get his team to honour the shirt? I mean, I think they have every possibility of staying up there, especially considering how Villarreal are playing at the moment, although I think they were hard done by referees this time round. But do you not, I actually think that with the way that they're going at the moment, and Postiga, who has been giving 120%, like his coach said, why don't you see them actually surviving? Because this is what, they've gone down twice. They really don't want to go down the 3rd time this decade. Do you not think it's at all possible?
It is possible. I'd give them a 20% chance of doing it. Next week they're playing Barcelona. They've got Sevilla to play as well in the Sanchez Pizjuan. So I think that's 2 games that they're going to lose, which is down to 6. They're going to need to win 5 of those 6. Of course, it is possible, but I just think they've what Manolo Jimenez has done is good work, and it's a good effort from the players. But I think it's just far too late for them. I can't see, excuse me, I can't see any other teams above them collapsing to the extent where Zaragoza are going to overtake them. As you said, Villarreal will scrape enough points. Real Sociedad, Betis, Granada, maybe just 2-3 wins needed from them to stay up. I think it's just too late now for Real Zaragoza.
What are the fans doing, considering everything that's happening, obviously, with Iglesias and with their president? Are they still very angry, or are they quite happy with what's been happening so far? Because they've been very outspoken, the fans.
Yeah, they're obviously still not happy from Iglesias, who hasn't been to the stadium now for a couple of months, and he says he's selling up, so he's taken a little bit of heat off himself. So if anyone wants to buy a heavily indebted club that's going to be in the 2nd division next season, then they can go for it.
Sorry, Tim, why doesn't he sell the club to Jorge Mendes?
That's an interesting question. He's got to, let's just say that he's probably busy with other clubs as well, like Atletico Madrid. But this is one of the problems for Zaragoza. I think there's quite a few players there who they won't be there in June or July, or they're temporarily being dropped there and moving on. So for them, relegation is completely irrelevant. But of course, the fans are delighted. But they know that it's perhaps a very key game against Barcelona at the weekend. If they lose that one, it might take a little bit of momentum out of it, especially if they get thrashed.
You mentioned Barcelona there. Saturday night turned up the Bielsa versus Guardiola clash. Now, Barcelona against Athletic Bilbao. Now, in some ways, people were looking at it, and then they found out, oh, look, Xavi rested, Muniain rested, Fernando Llorente rested. Of course, Bilbao had only played 48 hours earlier, and they've got another Europa League game coming up. But I have to say, I loved the first 45 minutes, and I was actually almost scared by Barcelona because Bilbao went at them with such fury, and Javi Martinez was fantastic, I thought, and Barcelona just kind of they kind of raised the tiki-taka to the nth degree, and Bilbao, I don't think they took a single shot on goal in the first half. They just weren't able to.
No, I think it was an underrated victory for Barcelona. It sounds a bit strange when you consider all that was against Athletic Bilbao. But this was a team, without Llorente, and because of the way that they don't really have any other striker. Toquero tries, but he's not really going to score more than 4 or 5 goals in the season. So it was a really strong rearguard action. And Amorbieta was another player who started on the bench, along with, as you said, Ander Herrera, Muniain. It was a really tough night for Barcelona. They had to just, as you said, play and stay very patient and not panic. And Athletic Bilbao went back to basics and just defended very, very well. And it was a sense of relief when Iniesta got that goal. So I think, although it shows us 2-0, it's all the pressure was on Barcelona. Everyone knew Athletic Bilbao were tired, resting players, and they had to break down that wall, but they did it in the end.
Tim, that was one for the purists. Gracias, macho. Thank you so much. And
My pleasure.
We'll catch up with you soon.
Hasta luego.
It was, I just really thought it was, it was just fascinating.
Quick
Would have
question.
loved to see them at full strength.
Was that a penalty on Teo?
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
I don't think
they
so
might.
either.
I think they got that right, actually.
Did you? You think they got it right? Okay. Okay.
All right, we're going to be back with a little bit of, wait, what is it?
Italy.
It's Mina's favorite league. We're back here on the World Football Show, and Mina, it was a sad weekend for many of us. I got the news around 4 o'clock that my friend and footballing legend Giorgio Chinaglia had passed away in the early hours of Sunday morning, and for me it was quite a shock because I'd only just spoken to him 2 days earlier on Friday. We'd been on his, he had me as a guest on his radio show, and it was a sad day, and I think one that sort of resonated across not just in Italy but obviously in the US and in Wales as well.
Yeah, everywhere. Now this was a player that defined sort of Lazio's Scudetto 1974. He was famous for sort of berating coaches, and when he played with Pele, he said, "Oh, I didn't play with Pele, Pele played with me." You know, I mean, he was a great personality on top of being a footballer who just really wanted to win and go forth and conquer, never give up. Now you like you said, you know him personally. So what is it like talking to him? Was he a madman, or was he just one of the most genuine men you've ever come across?
It was, I mean, it's a great question. It's remarkable because he's a very, very bright guy. But like a lot of bright people who've made big mistakes, and I think it's undeniable, obviously with his court case later in life and whatever else, with people like that, you wonder, are they also a bit mad? Are they uncontrollable? And I think that's just kind of the way he was. I think he had this sort of impulsive, almost childlike quality. But most of all, he had this tremendous generosity. Anybody who's ever been around him will tell you that he always stopped for a fan wanting an autograph, or whether you were a journalist ringing him or whatever. And one of his biggest gripes about the modern game was the distance between the superstars and the fans and the supporters. And he could explain it both in a business sense, because obviously it's promotion for the game, but also he said, most of these footballers come from nothing, and he himself came very much from nothing, a very poor family, and he was always so mindful of that and so respectful of that.
But one of the greatest to have ever graced the game for Italy.
I think certainly one of the greatest center forwards, and really, as I put it yesterday, a man who lived many lifetimes in his 65 years, because he really did so much. And I know Giorgio would want us to remember him with a laugh. So once you're done with this, go on YouTube and type in football crazy, and he made a music video in 1974, and it really is him singing. It was right around the time he was actually in a film with Elizabeth Taylor, and I think I could say this. He certainly would lead you to believe that Liz got intimate.
Oh, really?
But maybe that's just the legend and the myth of Giorgio Chinaglia. That's how
maybe it's just an
we
Italian.
want to remember him. Exactly.
Right, okay, so moving on, it was a mad weekend indeed. Right, and we've got Tancredi with us.
That's right, Tancredi Palmieri from the Hofsports Bistro in Milan. You see the place with all the banners and the scarves and the shirts in the background.
You love that place, Tank. You're always there.
Well, actually, yes. Honestly, if they would have also a bed for me, I must say that half of my week I would spend here, I must say.
You lead such an interesting life, Tancredi.
You don't know what kind of people are passing here through.
Next week will be a strip joint.
Now,
if you know the waitress, you would agree with me.
Off the top, we have to ask this because we have a title race in the Bundesliga now. Do we have a proper title race in Serie A after a weekend in which Catania held Milan to a 1-1 draw, And Juventus spanked, I think is the appropriate word, Napoli 3-0. It's a 2-point gap. Milan have the easier run-in. Is it a real, proper title race?
Well, guys, what do you think? It's 8 match days to the end, and it is something like this. And Milan still has the clash with Barcelona before the next match day. I'm saying just the clash with Barcelona because I don't think there will be other more. But anyway, and when you have, I mean, teams like Catania that can stop you, and also the situation is getting so dramatic for the third place, that is the one that is qualifying to Champions League, and in a way for the relegation, because there are some couple of teams. First of all, Fiorentina, they shouldn't be involved there, and it's just a huge drama for them to be there. So
Tancredi, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. You're covering all the scripts at once.
Okay, goodbye.
Title race. Do we have a race, considering the fact that there's 8 games left, but frankly, Milan basically plays 6 of them at the San Siro, and except for Inter and possibly Atalanta, the other teams are all Muppets.
No, I don't agree, because I don't think so, because they're facing sides that are actually going to be trying to not get relegated,
like
so they could give them a really hard team. Like Siena.
Siena will be safe by the time they play them.
Bologna.
Bologna. What's Bologna? I'm not familiar with such a team. Tancredi, please.
Pioli is doing a wonderful.
I must say one thing. Yes, if you look at both the calendar, actually they don't have a so difficult journey until the end. But for example, next Sunday, after what happened to Fiorentina now, Milan is playing Fiorentina at San Siro. The game shouldn't be that difficult, but the situation is so dramatic, and Milan will come back from Camp Nou. I mean, really, everything could happen. We have to look also in which situation Milan will come back psychologically, will come back from Camp Nou, because if they will be out, but after a 2-1, a 1 year, something like that, of course they will be all, in some way anyway, cheering, because they respected the history of a club. But if they will be squeezed, it will be a 3-0. Of course, there will be a huge pressure over Allegri. So, in my opinion, there is a huge race. If you remember, when some weeks ago I was in London, I exactly said that if Juventus will clinch Milan, that might happen in the next 3 weeks.
Okay, but
we're all talking about this because Milan dropped 2 points. They would not have dropped 2 points if that goal had been given. Robinho's shot, Marquez.
We don't know. Don't call it a goal yet, because we're not entirely sure it crossed over the line, and the whole
I honestly don't know. I've seen every replay.
You can see the AC Milan website, and the picture that picture shows it to have been crossed the line. If you actually watch it, I actually didn't think that the entire ball had crossed the line, whether it had or whether it hadn't. Surely, with the linesman, it's a difficult call to make. The one against Juventus was clear.
Exactly. I think this is the point. Why is Galliani doing this? He says unacceptable. It's a very difficult call to make, whatever you think.
Is this a big game? Is this a big club attitude? Really?
But there is one thing to say before everything, guys. Even if a ball, and this is the case, even if a ball crossed the line, doesn't mean that is a goal, because the ball has to cross the line. Also, I know that it sounds difficult to explain, also with the prospection of the ball. So might be there is still some grass between the goal line and the ball.
I know what you mean. The entire circumference has to cross the line. But I can't, we all know the rules though, but Tancredi, Galliani, why is he doing this? Has a screw come loose in his head? Yes. Or does he actually think it's good for Milan's image to go and behave like this?
Maybe they're jealous of Juve.
Why?
Stop it.
Exactly because of that, guy. Because of
the pressure. To talk.
Because they feel that they cut the 2 points of gap that they had, of advantage that they had before. And this pressure is working in Milan's mind. I mean, actually, after the complaints of Juventus, of Juve, since the Parma Juventus, a bit that attitude worked, and now there is a huge attention over all this refereeing. If they would feel so sure and so safe, they wouldn't react so hysterically like they did yesterday.
You know what? You know what, Tancredi? Listen, I've had it with Galliani. You know what he needs to do?
Really
since he has all the answers, then maybe he should become president of the Italian League, because I'm sure if he ever became president of the Italian League, he could fix everything. Oh no, look, he already was president of the Italian League. We're still in the same position. Basta, enough Galliani, come on.
I just wonder what Cesena would do.
Cesena.
No, I'm just saying, like, this is the kind of, you're a big club, you should be able to handle the pressure. They are not handling the pressure very well.
We need to talk some Juve here. We've given Galliani too much space on the show
Juve, who don't get involved in other people's
No,
teams.
never.
No, they don't.
never.
They don't
Stop
get
it.
involved.
But let's not talk about Juve.
No,
Juve
I
won
think we need to
3-0.
make this
Well
point.
done.
Allegri needs to stop talking for once. He is an embarrassment.
We're getting very
for that
clear
team.
directions from our producer that we need to get through many topics.
All right,
so
fine,
I think
fine.
we devoted more than
Juventus
no,
was
let's not
splendid.
talk about Juventus. Let's talk about Napoli's front three. In 30 seconds, why can Cavani, Lavezzi, and Hamsik look so good and just completely stink it up against Juve, who I thought deservedly beat the stuffing out
Not
of them?
one shot on target.
Absolutely, deservedly. I mean, Napoli has probably been good just in pressing and in keeping up the intensity, but of course that is not enough to match Juventus, and of course that is not what everyone was expecting. I can tell you, Gab, and I can tell you, Mina, never this season I found a so wide agreement between the journalists about the surprise of how Napoli played yesterday. We really were all a lot surprised, and actually we were also surprised that President De Laurentiis was not mad after the game. It seemed like they felt acceptable, so comparing to the unacceptable for Milan, they felt like acceptable to lose with Juventus, and actually it is, but I mean they should have fight much more and not concede in that way, also because the other clubs that are fighting for the third place for Champions League spot, they all lost yesterday. Lazio lost.
No, they didn't all lose. They didn't all lose because, of course, Roma won, and Roma remained my tip to finish third.
Gab, I think we have to just for a moment just mention the fact that Juventus did play a very great second half, and especially, and we have to give a special mention to Vidal, who played one of the best games I've ever seen him play with a wonderful goal. Right. So certainly the gap is open. But let's talk about Inter Genoa, because obviously it's the first game for Stramaccioni, who is, I have to say, one of my favorite coaches. Watching him already. I mean,
so
I remember
patronizing, isn't she?
Arrigo Sacchi saying wanting him for the under-17 job, and I remember at the time I read so much about him, especially because he's, I love men who are very devoted to their wives, and I think that's a very important quality.
If they are devoted to the wives, why do you love them?
I don't know. Because I love how wonderful. Anyway, that's not the point. What he did in the Next Gen series was especially wonderful. The way that he has managed to give them the competitive edge for the Premeira side, and on top of it, Inter has one of the best youth, I think one of the best youth teams ever. He gave them balance, he gave them a competitive edge, and now
this is all the past. Let's talk about the present.
So now, okay, let me finish. My God, talk about being rushed. So I feel like I'm racing against time. Now, you saw them play, conceded 5 goals, although he's actually defensively very strong, and I think that's very normal for him for a new thing, for a new
it's
first
very
time.
normal to concede 4 goals.
Yes, he conceded 7 to Tottenham Hotspurs in the Next Gen series. It was his first game.
It's normal for him.
It is normal for him. He's trying to suss out the team, and this is Inter, who have Lucio gallivanting in the top half. What do you think of him, and do you think that he is someone that will last the distance, or will he, sort of fall under the pressure?
I will say that he will for sure last the distance of 9 games. That one is separating now Inter from to the end of the season. The thing is that yesterday there were a lot of talks during this week. He will promote the guys from the youth team. He will bring new people. He will make a revolution. Well, yesterday Inter's lineup was with Stankovic, Cambiasso, Kivu, and Zarate up in front, right on the front. Actually, the team played quite good, so very conservative picks. Inter played quite good, still a lot of blackouts, defensive blackouts, but also, I would say, in the connection between the defense and the midfield, there is one thing that is very hard to heal. That was actually what killed Inter in the past, in the very recent past against Juventus. After the beginning of the second half, after the first 55, 60 minutes, the focusing of the team, or I don't know if it is the athletic preparation, is like melting down, crashing. Yesterday, Genoa scored 4 goals, and they almost didn't know how they could make it, because they were like, they were just throwing the ball in the box, and something was always happening. The defense was quite undefended in some way. So Stramaccioni is bringing enthusiasm. He has personality, that for sure. But now, after having this celebration against Genoa, that sacked, by the way, Marino after this 5-4, and his 17th change in Serie A this year.
Tancredi, Tancredi, thank you so much. We have to leave it there. You're right. Marino sacked one of my favorite people in the universe, Alberto Malesani, taking over. Want to talk about Roma? 5 goals. The project is on track. I still think they're going to finish in the top 3. Inconsistent. Yeah, everybody's inconsistent. It's Serie A. We'll catch you after the break with some.
Hello and welcome back to the World Football Show here on Sports Tonight Live. Now we go to Portugal. And since we don't really chat about them very often, I thought it's important that we bring them up at this time. Of course, it's very neck and neck at the top at the moment. I think
3 necks, actually.
Neck and neck. Sorry, 3 necks at the top. We've got Braga, we've got Porto, and we've got Benfica, who actually won over Braga, ruining their 13. Well, they would have made it 14 if Braga managed to win. However, having said that, in the 16 attempts that they've tried, Braga has only ever won once over Benfica, and they managed to win Benfica this time around 2-1. What did you think of the game? Did you watch it?
I think what's remarkable about Braga is certainly in years past they were known for this incredibly stout defense, and I'm just fascinated by the club because. If you look at it, they've changed managers, they changed personnel year after year. To me, it's an example of a very well-run club that it almost doesn't matter who the manager is and who the players. Obviously, you've got guys like Arjan or whatever who've been there for a while.
Sure.
But to find out more about it, why don't we speak to Tom Kundert from Portugal, .net.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about Braga? And I know they've got this guy at the top who's a bit of a wheeler dealer, but what makes them such a club that can be competitive year on year, even as the personnel changes?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head really there. It's the Antonio Salvador, who's the president of the club. He's just overseen this really remarkable rise. And like you say, the amazing thing is that they've had several managers over that time. And all of them have been successful. It doesn't really change. It hasn't changed how successful they've been. So you can't point at one manager and say, here's the reason they've been so successful. As well as, they've had so much success, a lot of the managers, that it's actually been a stepping stone to go to the bigger clubs. So you've had Josualdo Ferreira, who's gone to Porto. Then you had Domingos Paciencia, who went to Sporting, and you had Jorge Jesus, who went to Benfica.
Yeah. So basically, the managers of the 3 biggest teams in Portugal all managed Braga.
But it hasn't stopped.
Donkeys years ago,
Braga
but recently.
Just progressing.
Getting to this weekend, Braga, they were away to Benfica. So there was some sense that they were going to extend this incredible streak of, 13 consecutive wins, especially because Benfica they've got the Champions League coming up against Chelsea. I know they lost the first leg, but there might have been some distraction. Instead, last-minute winner.
Yeah, fantastic game it was. Really good game. And I think, again, in one way it was a kind of demonstration of how Braga have matured, because they played Benfica 2 seasons ago, and in quite a similar situation, really. It was Benfica and Braga vying for the championship. That fantastic Benfica side that won it in the end, but they only won it on the last weekend of the season because Braga stayed with them all the way. And on that occasion, Benfica won 1-0, but you could tell that Braga were quite nervous. On Saturday night, that wasn't the case at all. You can tell this is a team that's now used to the big matches. They've had a lot of big European matches, of course, got to the final of the Europa League last season. And you could tell their players were used to the atmosphere. They weren't overawed at all. And a bit unlucky, really. Braga had great chances to go 1-up. They missed them. Benfica went ahead just with about 10 minutes left, a bit more than 10 minutes left. Everyone thought that was that. Braga, they came back, scored an equaliser 5 minutes later. And it was only in stoppage time that really a fantastic move by Benfica, with Nico Gaetan set up Bruno Cesar, and he took it away. And that was it. Benfica go top. Braga, who were top before that game, slipped down to 3rd. But there's only 2 points separating Porto, who are top, Benfica 2nd, and Braga third, and just 1 point between all of them. So 2 points from
considering their budget, which I understand is only 17 million for the season. Did you sense that Benfica, having such a bigger budget, almost double that on the field, that they actually showed that they were that much better? But do you think that, in fact, Braga, with their small budget, have an opportunity to win this? Or do you think that, like you said, the experience will affect them in the end, or lack of it, rather, and see them trail down, and possibly this is the best that they can do at the moment and stay third?
I'm not sure. That's the thing about this Braga side. They've just achieved some absolutely incredible results over the last 2 years. And every time, they're punching way above their weight. You're right there. Their budget is 17 million. Sporting is about double that. Sporting languishing down in 5th. Benfica is about double that again. And Porto had the biggest budget ever for any Portuguese team this season, close to 100 million. So you can say it just doesn't compare with. They've just got different tools to Braga, but Braga, they've just got this fantastic work ethic. They've got the superb scouting system, and they managed to pick up a lot of very good players, either from other Portuguese teams, from actually the big three, ones which haven't quite worked out at the big three. Braga pick them up, and they tend to excel over there. Maybe they feel they've got something to prove. Also, a lot of the very good players from kind of mid-level teams, who in the past wouldn't really have considered going to Braga because they would have waited to see if they could get a chance to go to a Benfica or Porto or Sporting. And now they're quite happy to go there, because they know they're going to get regular European football, and they've got a chance of challenging for the honours. So
we don't have much time. Sorry, we don't have much time left, but I really want to hear from you. Have they done, in terms of their team building, have they taken advantage of the fact that Porto and Benfica are basically packed with foreign players, and so it's helped attract some of those Portuguese guys? And also, have they relied on third-party ownership as much as Benfica and Porto have?
Great question.
Well, as far as the foreign players goes, that's not the case at all, really. Braga this season has been, they're kind of bucking the trend a little bit, because they have had 3 or 4 Portuguese players in their lineup, but for the past 2 or 3 seasons, they've been basically just like Benfica, very, very few Portuguese players in their lineup, starting with just 1 or 2. Not quite to the extent of Benfica, who's played a lot of matches this season without a single Portuguese player. In terms of third-party ownership,
okay, Tom, we're going to actually have to leave it now. I'm really sorry, we're running out of time. But thank you so much for coming to chat with us. And I'm sure we'll come to you in the coming weeks as the title race gets even more exciting. That is sadly all we have time for this week. But Gab, did you enjoy yourself?
I certainly did. I hope we can have Tom back to talk some third-party ownership on my favorite subject.
This is his favorite subject, and something that you write about quite often. I certainly enjoyed myself. So we will be back next week with more chats about football. So I hope to see you then. Take care. Bye.